Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for me to get in my place of Zen, do a little bit of crafting, have a little fun. Let's laugh about some stuff that really we shouldn't laugh about. It's kind of serious because people take this stuff serious. And I was really reminded of it by the Dr. Noon Amen Ra videos and some of the stuff these people were coming in saying. And it's so funny because people will be like, wow, you're so ignorant. You're so ignorant. You're so left brain prisoner. And the funny thing is, I actually have known people in real life who believe all these things these people are talking about. So I'm actually not ignorant of this topic. I've had a long-term relationship with a new age chick before. So I kind of understand. I know all this stuff already. And that's why it's funny when I hear these people. And so let's talk about some of this stuff for a bit. So you guys sit down, buckle up, strap in, and enjoy the ride while I work on these arts and crafts. So, yeah, I know a lot about this sort of stuff. I have had long-term relationship with a chick who believed a lot of this stuff and new age stuff. First of all, it's crazy. I'm going to just link through here some of the comments as I go, just overlapped into the video. But yeah, I mean, they come up with this stuff. You always know you're dealing with one of these new age hippie types when they say something about, oh, you're a left brain prisoner. It's like I haven't heard that 57 fucking times in my life. You guys know what? There is no such thing as left and right brain. That has been scientifically disproven. Throwing that out there, just so you know that, there have been studies on that. Yes, there are 13 different types of intelligences, but it has nothing to do with which hemisphere of your brain is dominant. In fact, if you have a dominant hemisphere in your brain, you are probably mentally retarded. And I don't mean that to be mean or a joke, but you're probably functioning at a very low level. Like you won't do well on an IQ test. You have damage of some type. Or there's been some damage to your corpus callosum in your brain. So that's not a good thing for anybody. There's no left or right brain like people are thinking of. All right, there's just different types of intelligences, and it's more than two. It's up to 13 that we've identified. So, that being said, though, all this hippie stuff, it's scary because you see a lot of this hippie stuff and new age stuff get masqueraded as fitness, as if these people actually know anything about the human body, and really, it's all a bunch of just stuff that's come out of a mixture of different belief systems, like certain religious beliefs from the Near East, India, Hinduism, Jainism. A lot of different religions have influenced these things, but this is mostly this new agey stuff that started coming out real big in the 1980s here in the United States, and mixed with a lot of hippie stuff and a lot of guruism and everything else, has created a lot of really strange ideas. You know what, guys? I left my rag on the ground. And I hate to do that because I like to do these videos raw and unedited. But yeah, you have a lot of this hippie stuff has developed from this whole mixture of different beliefs. And again, it gets masqueraded as actual fitness. And it really is anti-science. It's anti-scientific. And it has spawned a lot of really crazy as fuck ideas. Like, I've actually met someone over the years, because again, just different circles I've been involved in. I met someone who was something called a Breatharian, who honestly believed that they could sustain themselves off drawing energy from oxygen that they breathe. Now, this guy had been doing it a few weeks when I met him, but he was dedicated, and it was 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside. That's roughly in the high 20s, low 30s. Actually up in the 30s Celsius. And he was wearing 2 layers of clothes with a hoodie on and sweatpants while shivering because he was starving to death and he couldn't produce enough energy to maintain his own body heat. But he was convinced that he is a breatharian that would be able to draw energy from the universe just through breathing. And this is where we get these sort of people who come up with these crazy ideas, like this Dr. Noon Amen Ra and his followers, that know he can meditate and slow his metabolic rate enough that he can draw energy from elsewhere and try to violate the laws of physics. And folks, it doesn't work that way. And when we start seeing things like health and fitness, which are science-based endeavors, the whole concept of studying the human body to understand how to keep it healthy and fit, a lot of this crazy new age stuff has no place in it. We're getting back to religious stuff, and people say, well, these people have been practicing this for many years. Yeah, because they didn't have scientific instruments to study things. We need to be very careful about mixing our spirituality, and I am a believer in freedom of religion, by the way, and being an open-minded skeptic of anything, but at least being open-minded to people's religious beliefs. I'm generally pretty open-minded about these things. But we need to be very careful about taking religious and spiritual beliefs and trying to turn them into science and pretend like these things are measurable science, because before long people come up with all sorts of kooky stuff. And you see it with every religion. It doesn't matter whether it's this Eastern spirituality such as Buddhism or Hinduism, or whether it's Christians or other people. You've got to be careful of doing this, because you come into science with preconceived ideas based upon the idea that people from previous eras knew more than we did about the world, because they got some divine message from the universe or from God or angels or whatever. And because they didn't have any way to actually measure the stuff, all they could do was observe a little bit and hope they get it right. They didn't have the instruments to go in and measure like we're developing and getting better at developing. And they did the best that they could with some of these things. And you can't knock them for that, guys. I mean, at least they were trying. They were putting forward an effort to try to understand the world around them with what they had available. So a lot of them might have been very brilliant people. And I'm not saying they weren't. Some of these spiritual writers from different eras, they made observations about things, about their world around them, and notice maybe when they meditated they did have certain health things improve. Well, now we understand that, reducing stress in general is going to make you healthier. We have means to measure that now, but they didn't fully understand it. They thought oftentimes it was some external energy. Or certain religions realized, hey, pork is probably not the healthiest thing. Well, look at the way pigs acted and incomplete cooking processes we had back then. The chances of getting trichinosis and other stuff from pigs was really, really high in the older times. So, realistically, they would look at this and see this and draw these conclusions, and they were reasonable conclusions based upon their observations. And that's stuff that you've got to keep in mind. A lot of these beliefs came from certain observations, but that doesn't mean that they're all-knowing knowledge that we don't need to re-study and look at. And don't be careful of mixing your spirituality with actual science. And fitness is a science. We're looking at studying the human body. And if you have something, the problem is that as soon as the data shows that it's wrong and you have a spiritual belief and you're trying to pass it off as fitness, you've got a problem. So when we get into these things of metabolism and energy balance, you've got to be wary of a lot of this hippie new age stuff, because a lot of it isn't even a real religion. I mean, it would be one thing if some of this stuff was an actual real religion itself that had been used for thousands of years and people had a reason to cling to it. But this stuff is oftentimes just a big mixture and hodgepodge of a dozen different spiritualities and disciplines that people are just throwing together to get little followings and cult-like followings and sell books and make money. And, and I would say stuff like yoga can be an introduction to it if you're not careful, because there's a lot of that in yoga. Yoga has some benefits. Not going to lie, there are some health benefits to yoga, and it's certainly better than doing nothing. But a lot of people, because again, the spiritual components of it, will slip into this new age stuff, or they'll come to believe without any basis for it, and we know otherwise, that it's like the best form of exercise, that it's the best way to lose weight or gain muscle or improve bone density or whatever, and it's not. It still has benefits. It's a great form of active recovery. It's a great form of relaxation, and relaxation, again, helps you recover, can make you healthier because you reduce stress. Nothing wrong with that. But, again, you'll see that in a lot of yoga circles. They'll get into this new agey stuff, and before long, people start believing all sorts of kooky things about their chakras and their energy and grounding with the earth and other things that they're just made up, and they're oftentimes pseudoscience. And it can actually be worse in some cases than the bro stuff you see over in the bodybuilding world, which is bad enough, but a lot of this stuff just gets kooky. When people start following these really weird, rigid diets, or actually saying things like a raw vegan diet is the natural diet for a human. No, it's not. Have you never opened an anthropology book? The idea that humans are raw food eaters is just scientifically and historically not true. We're actually cooked food eaters. So another perfect example of the way this stuff goes. And because people don't think it through, they assume, well, no, we didn't have fire forever. No, we had fire long before there were humans here. People were cooking before Homo sapien existed. We descended from other species that had been cooking with fire for 2 million years. We are very well adapted. When we study our GI tracts, we are insanely well adapted to cook food. We tolerate it amazingly well. Almost as if we evolved to eat it, which we did. Or, if you want to be a creationist, say we were designed to eat it, that's your prerogative. But either way, you come to the same conclusion. You tolerate it well. But, again, same thing. Some people will start talking about the life force in your food. Well, really, what are you talking about? What is life force? Can you measure it? Because if it's that powerful, it probably has a discernible energy source that you can measure with an instrument somewhere. Since we can see little tiny nanoparticles and measure electrons and photons and subatomic particles of all type, I'm sure life force would have something measurable, but it doesn't. It's a set of chemical reactions going on. And those chemical reactions break down in your stomach acid. That food is dead, dead, dead before it reaches your bloodstream. Everything alive about it. So again, you got to watch this stuff. You got to watch when they get sucked into it. And it's so big out there, and it's grown so big with all the new agey stuff and yoga and gurus and everything else, that there's a lot of it out there, and you've got to be aware of it and be leery of it. And a lot of you, the further you get into fitness, you're going to deal with more and more of this stuff out there. You're going to be surprised when you step away from just the online bodybuilding type fitness world and realize there's a whole nother niche of people also calling themselves fitness and wellness and everything, who believe all sorts of other kooky, crazy shit with no scientific basis that's even worse in some cases than bodybuilding bro stuff. But it's out there. Be aware of it. It can be amusing to laugh at it sometimes, and other times it can be downright scary. Again, like I saw the guy with the Breatharian thing. The guy was basically killing himself. I mean, that is a crazy, insane philosophy, but there are whole books written on it. And yeah, I mean, it was scary because I saw the guy. He was losing. He was saying something like, "Oh, I'm down 27 pounds this month." And the guy was looking skinny already, and it was sad, because I'm like, dude, you do know you're killing yourself, right? You're starving to death. And he's like, no, it's going to be okay. I'm going to I read all about it, and I'm going to draw energy from the air, and I'm going to be so much healthier for it. And it's, people get sucked into these things. And because a lot of these gurus can be so convincing with this stuff, and they develop these little cult-like followings. So when you see people like this fucking quack, Dr. Noonam Ra, and he is a fucking quack. Jesus Christ. Go look at the stuff he says. Watch an interview. Dude is Looney Tunes as fuck. Like, I'm surprised a guy that fucking, out there, just in his manner of speaking and the things that he does, has any following at all. That shocks the fuck out of me. That actually makes me fear for the survival of the human fucking race. But that aside, you've got these guys out here, and he's just one of many. And so he just popped up on the radar here in the online YouTube fitness world recently. That's the only reason I'm talking about it, because I've got such a response from his followers that I just want them to understand that this is not science, and you don't have fucking chakras, and you don't ground to the motherfucking earth the way that you think you do. Maybe if you hook yourself up to a ground prong on your electric outlet, there's a ground prong, that little bottom third one, the round one instead of the two yellows, that's a ground prong. But that might discharge just a little bit of static electricity if you have it, because that goes to the ground. But outside of that, you don't ground to the earth and shift energy to the ground. Now, some of you living in New Mexico in the desert, you'll get a little more static than others. But, it's not harmful to you. But, yeah, this stuff isn't real, guys. It's just mysticism and kookiness, and it's used to sell books and products and wheatgrass juice and colon cleanses and books, and for guys to get a new age following and get them a bunch of new age pussy. That's the whole point of all of it. That's it. It's not real. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.